Welcome to a special edition of KNAF-AM 910's news feature. This is our garden feature with Deb Simmons of the Native Plant Society of Texas, Fredericksburg Chapter. And you are the president of the Fredericksburg Chapter, correct?
Right, I am, this year and also for next.
Oh, excellent. Well, and thank you so much for being here. You're going to be helping us over the course of a series of interviews, learn a little bit more about native plants, but also sort of all of the elements of it that support the environment and support humans in different ways. And today we're going to be talking about water retention because, of course, we're in the middle of a drought that doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon, does it?
All of that's true, yes.
So part of water retention, it turns out, is planting natives. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, first of all, having access to water is the foundation of all life, not just plant life, but also animal life and fungal life. Mm-hmm. And so water is a very foundational issue for us. And as we've seen with having drought years, now back-to-back drought years, and we have a little gap, and then we'll have some more drought years, it's becoming more and more a critical issue. And if you look at a rainfall map of the United States, there's a line down the middle. And to the east of that line is green. And to the west of that line is brown, except for little pockets in the Pacific Northwest. So we here in Fredericksburg are on the line. And so as the climate shifts just a little bit, the desert west just pushes right into us.
I wasn't aware of that.
It's true. And so now if you drive 50 miles out west I-10, you're in the Chihuahuan Desert. And so it's coming. It's pushing. And so part of planting natives for water retention is pushing back.
I like that.
Yeah. So why plant natives, and how does that make any sort of a difference? Well, native plants were here before people were cultivating plants, and so they can deal with what our area has to dish out, which is pretty harsh climate conditions. And so we've got cycles of heat and drought, extreme heat, extreme drought. We have extreme cold sometimes, every once in a while. And so the plants that survived over millennia before we started cultivating are the ones that are really set up to succeed here.
So let's say you're someone, you've heard about planting native plants, you've kind of done it haphazardly, but now you want to really focus on it. What do you need to be thinking about for your first time out or your first year of planting natives?
Yeah, so it's really a very simple process. It's like, where do these plants want to grow? So not just here in Gillespie County, but in the shade, in the sun, in deep soil, in sandy soil, in loamy soil? Do they want water to pool around them? Are they happy growing on rock? So where do these grow? And then what have you got in your yard? Okay.
So it's like playing a matching game, really.
It's a little matching game. It's Match.com. It's like single green plant seeking dry, shady area. That's Columbine. You can go in so you're basically matching. And so there's lots of ways to match. There's some wonderful resources on the NIPSOT website. If you go to nipsot.org, there's a native plant database, and you can enter all your criteria, and it helps you find plants that will work. The Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center also has a good native plant database. So the first thing you're doing is you're playing a matching game. What do you have at your place? And then, we have this oak tree. What grows? What kind of an oak tree? Oh, that's post oak. Oh, we have a natural ecosystem called the post oak savanna. Well, what's the understory for that? Maybe I can plant some of those. And so it just starts with, what do I have on site? What kind of soil? What kind of plants are already there? And then how do I augment that?
So for someone who's kind of new to this and maybe visual, maybe they even make a little drawn map of their own landscape and figure out what's there, so it gives them something to look at while they're doing the research. Is that a way for some people to start? Or
yeah, that's a wonderful way to start. And it used to be you'd have to start with your survey of your house when you bought your place, but now you can start with your Google map, which if you do that and you do the aerial view of Google Earth, you can actually see the plant formations, or if you have a creek, or how big is that tree relative to your house, and all of that. So
that's exciting. That's very cool. So what's next? What's next as we're thinking about we've thought about our first year, we're thinking about what our matching game is. What's next?
Well, so then you have your little map. I like that idea. You take your little Google map and you think, well, I'm going to put some understories under this tree, and I want some flowering plants here out front. You do your matching game. We at Nipsot have a native plant sale twice a year, but also we have a wonderful native plant nursery in Friendly Natives on Llano Street, and Matt, there, the owner, can help you find the right things for your garden. We also do seed exchanges at the society meetings. So once you figure out what you want and you have a little bit of a plan, then you put in your seeds or your plants or your seedlings, and now's the time to do it.
So this is a good time of year to do it, right here in the fall, in the sort of early fall time.
It is. If you notice, there's pecans on the pecan trees. There's acorns on the oaks. Our native plants, our trees and other plants are going to seed, and they're doing that because that's the natural cycle as the plants go more dormant in the wintertime. And so if you're putting in seeds or planting, now's the time to do it. It's not stressed with the heat of summer evaporation, and we're having our wettest time of year and coolest time of year through the winter. So in your garden in the winter, it looks like nothing is happening, but everything happens in the winter to help combat drought. And that's your roots are going down, down, down into the soil and getting established so that next summer the plant has enough base to put on some top.
That's exciting. So when is your next native plant sale?
So
when are your plant sales usually?
Yeah, we do one in the spring and one in the fall. So we did one at the very end of September. So we have another one coming up March timeframe. We haven't set the date yet. Okay. So so that's when you can get like a big load of plants to put in and all of that. But we can do this year round, and now is the time to plant here in the fall.
Sure. So you mentioned, because we're also going back to thinking about water retention. What do we think about water retention when we're thinking about planting and also making sure that we're getting water to our plants?
Yeah, so good. So one of the things your builder did when your builder built your house, your builder was like, yeah, we don't want water in the house. We're going to make every lot kind of a dome. And the house is on the top, and what we want is all the water to run off into the street, into the gutters. And so that's really a sensible idea for your house, but it makes no sense for your plants unless you want a cactus garden. And so you're going to have to work with that a little bit. So one thing is you could capture your rainwater that rolls off your roof. Put down gutters and put some barrels on, and that will capture rainwater for you. So there's a series of ideas there around capturing. There's another series of ideas that's much lower tech, and anyone can do it, even your dog. And that is to contour your land a little instead of having it be smooth. So your dog goes and digs in the garden and wallows her body and makes this little oval, and leave it there. And if you plant something next to it or in it, well, water will accumulate there and then drains, instead of running off, it'll drain down toward the roots.
Oh, wow.
So just think about that over and over. Imagine if your yard were, say it's domed, and then you've dimpled it your dog dimples it like a golf ball. Well, suddenly you have a lot less runoff. You're retaining a lot more water. So there's different ways to do that. If you have steep areas and you terrace them with a little berm, like a little lip on the berm, well, that starts to run the water back. So you just look at your place and you think like a drop of water. I landed on the roof. Where will I go? And what you want it to do is stay in your yard. You don't want it rolling back to your house, but you don't want it rolling to your neighbors, however much you like them. You don't want it rolling into the street where it's going to go in the storm drains or just evaporate.
Yeah, it's not going to do your plants or your yard any good that way.
Yeah. So rainwater capture is this very simple thing.
That's exciting. I really like that. I love that whole idea of the contouring. And that's such a human function going back to the very beginning of time of creating landscaping.
Of course.
So what is next? Because let's say we've got, we're capturing our water, but we still use a lot of water in the house and in other ways. Is there any way some of that water could still be used to, I think it's called gray water, right?
Yeah.
Is there any way some of that could still be used for landscaping or for your
So yeah, absolutely you can do that. So right, in water, used water, there's gray water and black water. And black water you probably don't want to use, but if you're on a septic system, it basically, your black water, where your toilet flush, goes down into the septic system if you have a leach field, and it degrades over time, and it goes in to amend your soil, and all is well. Even your black water is actually being used if you're on septic. If you're on city sewer, different things are happening to it. But if you have rural property, you're actually reclaiming your black water too. And gray water, yes, this is the runoff from your shower and your dishwater and those sorts of things. So you can again be very low tech with this. You can use the water to wash the dishes and carry your dishpan out and pour it on your plants, or you can do some sort of a gray water recapture system. And so I've seen some interesting and sophisticated recapture, elegant gray water and recapture systems in Europe, coming out of Europe. But you don't have to be fancy. You just think about, this is wet and good, and what am I going to do with it? And pour it out. I empty my teapot, I step out the back door, and I pour it out into the ground instead of running it down
I like that. Well, I know that we tried to use gray water from dishwashing when we were during that harsh summer, to at least keep our trees alive.
Yeah.
We figured something was better than nothing for them. And then we have the original, my father built this from the washer dryer area. All of our gray water goes to this particular area, and it's very green and lush in that area. Yeah. But so it's so interesting. So what makes some kind of gray water? Now, I know some people say you can't use some gray water. Is that the stuff that has like food and things in it? Is that true, or is it?
I mean, food is just organic matter that'll decay over time. You don't want something with poisons in it. Right? And so if you did some sort of, insect pesticide spraying, and then you hosed down your porch, well, the pesticides are running out.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably not something you want to do. But
just your regular wash water.
Your regular wash water is just fine. And if you use some real harsh chemical in your wash, bleach could kill things, but
the rest of it.
But the rest of it's it's pretty much fine.
So what else should we be thinking about?
So just another couple ideas. One of them is you want to reduce evaporation. And so there's different pieces of that. And one piece of that is, how do you water? Suppose you have this lovely reclaimed rainwater. Well, if you hook it up to your sprinkler and spray it in the air on a hot afternoon, you're going to have a lot of evaporation. If you wait till night, you're going to have less evaporation because it's cooler. And if you can get it onto the ground instead of into the air, like through a soaker hose, or even just trickling your garden hose, well, then you're going to retain a lot more of that. So soaker hoses are great. You can put your soaker hoses on timers. If you don't have rainwater recapture, you're still going to use less of your city water if you're hooked up, or less of your well water if you're hooked up to soaker hoses. And then another piece for reducing evaporation is putting mulch on the ground. And so that just, if you have your soaker hoses and then you cover them with 2 inches of mulch, now you're really reducing evaporation. And not only is the hose soaking down, but whatever bubbles up is coming into the contact with those wood chips. It's absorbing some of their nutrients, and it's making sort of a compost tea that's soaking down into your soil.
And when we think about mulch, should we be looking at the types of mulch that are made from trees or organic matter from our area as we think of native plants?
So that's a great question. So we have providers of mulch. You can go buy, Walmart will sell you a bag of mulch, as will many, many places. But our city dump has double cut something or other mulch. I forget what it's called. It's very cheap. You can load it up by the flatbed trailer. Now, if you have like a 10 by 10 foot yard, it probably makes sense to buy a bag of mulch. But if you want to get mulch, you can get it from the dump, and very, very cheaply. And it is, by definition, it's our local mulch because, well, people bring in their things and they get shredded, and that's what makes the mulch.
So cool. I love that. So from the plant to the mulch to the water, it's all native. It's all what's right there.
It's all from right here.
That. And we're trying to keep it all here.
We are. Right. Why send our nutrients somewhere else? Why send our water somewhere else? Like, we really need it. And, we had a speaker at one of our meetings not long ago. Her name's Dee Dee Wright, and she's a cattle rancher, among other things. She has done cattle ranching. But she talked about the research that has been done. And it's not big data studies, but there's some research that's been done about just landowners banding together to make some changes to their land use, being mindful of using native plants, being mindful of the water recapture, and it changing the water cycles right there for them, right in their spot.
Wow.
And so it's not that, you're doing this suffering thing because you're benefiting people across the world. Like, it's good for you to do this for yourself. It's good for us and our neighbors, to be taken care of, creating habitat for native animals and using native plants and being mindful of our water use.
That's so exciting. And what else should we be thinking about as well? Because this is really cool for all of the water retention and for creating a really beautiful landscape. I think ultimately that's just what it's also going to be, a landscape for ourselves and for our animals. What are some of the other benefits related to doing this? Is it about attracting other, just sort of generally, because we can talk more in depth in future about it if you want to, but I loved how one of our conversations you talked about when you create these things, you're actually also inviting other things into your yard that are good for you and good for the yard.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Once you start planting native plants, you start attracting native critters. The lizards come, the birds come. And yes, I would love to do some follow-on podcasts about planting for pollinators, which is it will create the most beautiful yard you ever had, because pollinators need flowers. Well, people need flowers, and so it's really lovely. And the same thing with the trap. Yeah,
let's definitely do that. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and then just a couple of really simple ideas just about water retention. Plant a tree. If you have shade, then you've created a space where as water evaporates from under the tree, it hits the underside of the leaves and it rains back down. And if you have a big enough place that you can have a couple of trees or create a clump of trees, then suddenly you've really protected a lot of the moisture in the area.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. And one of the things you talked about last time you were on is that, okay, maybe we won't see the tree get as, big enough for us to not be able to hug, but in 10 years, we'll have a tree tall enough that we can stand under. We'll get some of that shade, and then our grandchildren will get, or our great nieces and nephews will get some of that shade and a lot of that other. But they don't have to be really tall or high to get this water retention capacity. It starts as soon as they sort of start growing, right?
That's so true. In fact, when we put in little tree seedlings, which we do all the time, which I've done within, every time you see me, I've planted trees since the last time. But I'm putting in these little tiny seedlings, or they're 8 inches tall, and it's going to be, 65 feet tall. And what's the shade for them? It's the grass.
Oh, wow.
Oh, or a little mealy blue sage, or some little wildflowers here and there. That's what's shading the ground for the seedling. And eventually the seedling will there will be a tree and shade a lot more ground. But actually, one of the first talks.
I never thought of that. That's so cool.
Everything is casting a shadow on the ground, and that's reducing evaporation. In one of the first NIPSOT talks that I ever heard, it was someone from the U.S. Soil Conservation District, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, bare ground is public enemy number one. That's true. As soon as there's something on it, you start to have shade, and that starts to help retain the water.
That's so exciting. I love that. So I guess we'll end it there, because that really is so powerful. I'm so excited you were here today. Thank you so much. And I know that NIPSOT for Fredericksburg Chapter, you're taking a little hiatus for the holidays, but you guys will be back online and in action in January, correct?
Yes, that's right. We're going to be the fourth Tuesday in January, and that's going to be January 23rd. And we'll meet at 6:30 p.m.
Excellent.
At 212 West San Antonio Street in St. Joseph's Hall. And everyone is welcome. You don't have to be a member.
And also the website is, they can just also, in the meantime, they can go to the website, and there's all kinds of great information on your website too. And that's
true.
NIPSOT.
Yeah, npsot.org. And if you search for chapters and find the Fredericksburg chapter, you'll find the plants that are right here for our area. But the general site has a lot of useful tools as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been fun.
You've been listening to a KNAF News feature here on The Roy Holly Show. The next intergenerational game day is March 27th at 3:30 at Llano County Library. Talk About the Hill Country wants to remind listeners that libraries are a great resource. Books are only the beginning. Patrons can take workshops on crafts, healthy living, exercise, and much more. Library apps make ebooks and Audible books available for free. We have many great libraries here in the KNAF listening area in Fredericksburg, Johnson City, Bernie, Llano, Marble Falls, Brady, Harper, and Mason, to name just a few. Make a visit to the library one of your fun field trips this week. Talk About the Hill Country is a service of KNAF and HC Broadcasting. If your business or organization has an event or a new service coming up in the days, weeks, or months ahead, contact us to be put on the calendar. Talk About the Hill Country comes on every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on KNAF AM 910. Call KNAF at 830-997-2197, fax 830-997-2198, or email knafnews@gmail.com.